presentation just gave the data manager and data programmer and the anxiety. Like that is, I feel like we just witnessed the eighth wonder of the data processing world. Like, I can't imagine what you guys went through or continuing to go through to develop that. My name is Anthony Fucci. I work with Marcelo at Westat in Atlanta. I have a BA in geography from Georgia State University, and I've worked in transportation research for about 7 years, mostly on household travel surveys. So yeah, the title today, which we've got memorized but is very verbose, to the point, let's create web-ready tables, charts, and maps using open source tools. And let's use this large national travel survey to help do that. So get some more background. Maybe many of you aren't familiar with this, but it's definitely something that's happened to me many times. The end of a study is closing up. The statisticians have finally developed weights on a data set, and I'm asked to sort of help support a report or help support generating statistics. And it's difficult to do using weighted data. So sort of the project team for NHS sort of encouraged us, and we encouraged them to look ahead and sort of develop something that we could test internally and use internally, but also perhaps share with data users as well. So just the overview of what I'm about to go through, and it's mostly just to get in the weeds because I have to justify why this tool is so useful so that we can hop to the visualizations and actually look at some demonstrations and stuff from the tool. The NHS is, I don't think I should bite my tongue, it's kind of like the census of national transportation. I know the ACS references data from the NHS to help decide how to use in some of their questions. It's a hierarchical data set with the real value being this trip level data. So the NHTS 365-day study, 7 days a week, you can actually generate statistics on their travel, not just answer questions they answer at the person level regarding their travel or at the vehicle level regarding their travel. So that's why this data set is so fun and rich, but it is complicated because of its hierarchical nature. And we're supporting the Summary of Travel Trends, which is sort of the big report that comes out of the National Household Travel Survey, and that sort of poked us looking ahead. Hey, we're going to have to support something that we're going to have to. Background using weighted data. As you guys know, weights expand a sample unit proportionally to the population. They're complex to develop. You have to do it, though, to pay attention to your sampling theory and to make sure you're using numbers that you feel confident to generate official statistics for. And the sort of the process they do in generating these creates a lot of opportunities to compute much better variance estimation. So you really have to use the weights. And I've been in many of meetings where you can talk about the data all you want, and it can be interesting to summarize it at the sample level, but people, if you're trying to make a claim or something, there'll be somebody in the room who's like, where did you use the weights? Did you use the weighted data? So the analysis tool requirements, these really haven't changed since we first laid this out 6 months, 8 months ago. We want to use open source tools only. A lot of the tools we already use in-house are open source, and if we want to share this with the community, we kind of have to keep it all open source anyway. So we need to aggregate variables across data set levels. It's just who we are. We're going to go HTML. Like, we want our graphics to look like Michael's graphics, to look like the New York Times graphics, to look like the journalist's graphics. So we're going to go HTML. We're going to provide documentation on all the functions used in the package. We're going to enforce error computation. Right now, there's no way to turn that off. And person and household trip rates. So again, we're going to support users and ourselves to be able to generate statistics using travel information that they can also sort of categorize along with the other person level or household level attributes or vehicle level attributes. And we're going to host it. It's already hosted and branded on GitHub, and that's sort of the de facto open source code sharing thing today. I think everyone else is just leaving it to GitHub now. But it's good. You can put something up there, and it's quickly Googleable and findable, and it's a good community. So, summarizing this visualization toolkit, reduce the steps required to make meaningful visualizations, all that data programming, data janitor, data management work that is ripe for error and typo. Let's help wrap all that up and depend on existing popular open source technology, right? So you probably recognize some of these. I'm using R, just like Marcelo. I think it's, at this point, a top 5 programming language. It's used by statisticians, engineers, academia, professionals. You may recognize some of those packages there. I think they may exist in other languages as well. So each of those arrows represents a function of the package. So load data set is read NHTS data set. You specify a year. The specify variables and statistic arrow is the make table function. Dense documentation, you're going to need to go through that to understand all the statistics you can use and how to use them. And then just the single create table, create chart, create map, wrap everything up so you can just make one call. And you can sort of in three lines, but really in 3 steps, look at actual solid data. Just real quick, it kind of was a technical mess, but we learned a lot, especially on how to get a computer to do a lot of these statistical operations fast, so that this we can generate these statistics in seconds and not minutes. And that meant having to abandon a lot of tools out there and just having to do it ourselves, which was cool. Sort of the back and forth organization and order of operations to eventually arrive at that previous visual you guys saw there was a lot of back and forth to eventually wrap it up there. It sort of happened organically. We're able to benchmark our outputs with existing tools out there. The Oak Ridge National Laboratory has a contract with FHWA, and they have a tool that generates household rates and person trip rates. And we were able to look at those log files and down to the same precision, able to benchmark our statistics with theirs. We learned a bit about just general packaging software for non-dev users. Just for a quick visualization discussion, HTML is on, I'm pretty sure pretty soon every device ever is going to have a browser on it, so that'd be nice if any visualization you make can run on anything. It's using SVG, not the tables, they're already scalable, but if you're not familiar with SVG, I probably can't sum it up real quick, but it definitely allows you to change the resolution of your device and the resolution scales. So if you were to do that with a GIF or a PNG, it would get blurry any direction you went. That won't happen with SVGs. And interactivity, again, because how these objects are built, you know things about, I know that bar belongs to this data object. It really opens things up with what you can do. We could throw a front end on this, just similar to like some of the stuff you've seen earlier. To keep it simple, things stay focused, and we're going to continue to do that. And that's why there's just tables, charts, and maps, but even that can keep you really busy. Sorting through the options. Well, I've already talked about that. We're going to use open source tools, and we're going to use the ones we're familiar with that are also very popular. And we're going to configure our good opinions. What I mean is we're going to sort of pre-configure sensible options, color choices that make sense. And we're also going to stop you from doing things you shouldn't do. This is just the intro slide before I just start hopping into actual demonstrations of the package. So I'm going to show, for a couple of these, I'm going to actually just show the code that you use to make the call, because I want to show how easy it is to use. And I'm going to talk about the data on some of these. So I made these for this presentation using the 2009 NHTS data set. And you can do this now too, going to download this tool. So daily person trips by education level. Just want to show the code here. The data equals data all, that's sort of that read NHTS read data thing. There, the aggregate, we're going to do person trip rate, and we're just going to use the person level factor education. So that first call builds our table, builds our statistic, and now we're going to output it using the make HTML table, and that's what you get right there. I'm going to add 2 more factors to it. I'm going to add sex, gender at the person level, and then I'm going to add a household level variable, the household state, or the state that the sample household was in. So you can see that there. And then I'm just going to plot the graphic up here. These are screenshots from web browser. So I think that's it for tables. I'm going to hop into graphs, which follow a same thing. I'm using the make table function. I'm specifying here a household trip rate, and I'm using the census region. And I'm calling out, instead of to make HTML table, I'm calling out to make bar chart. Pretty cool. South, north, east, Midwest, west, with the error bars up there. Very non-trivial to require. We're doing that for you. Next up, just this one, I'm gonna play with this one a little bit more. This is daily person trips by work status. So make table again, it's reading in a hierarchical data set, knowing what factors you've put in. Creating this object here, I'm using work full-time or part-time status. Here at this level, we can see part-time workers are traveling full-time. But let's play with it more. So I think I'm going to add some factors to this. Yeah. So here I'm going to add day of week. So all I did was add day of week to that factor. And boom, here we go. So this is daily person trips by work status, day of week. So when you drill in like this, yeah, part-time workers do travel more by day of week, but not on Saturday, and it's pretty competitive on Friday. So it's pretty interesting. Play with it again. Now this is what's so impressive. I'm going down to the trip level for this. So this is daily person trips by work status, trip time of day. So, I mean, the pattern's kind of obvious. The full-time workers obviously travel a lot more around those peak rush hour times. And see, those part-time workers are pretty much more consistent. Okay. Do next. Daily person trips by status day of week. So don't freak out at the colors. I'm not using the full-time worker, part-time worker. I'm using this question NHTS asked, which is what is your primary activity? So I'm just, homemaker, worker, something else, retired. So all I did was replace that previous call with this question, prime act and travel day of week, and immediately I'm looking at my homemakers traveling more across every day of the week. Pretty competitive with people temporarily without a job, but not really. So it's pretty interesting to see workers tend to fall maybe in the middle of person types for travel. Again, you have your margins of errors, which have increased because we've broken apart the sample, of course. Just important to see. All right, this is my last bar chart. I'm not actually including the bars here. I'm just showing the error bars. But I like, on the left is a 5-year-old, and on the far right is a 90-something-year-old. And so here are their daily person trips by age. Pretty cool. There's just one factor here, age. So you can sort of see as we approach 40 and maybe have kids that we sort of peak probably the amount of trips we take on a day, and that sort of decreases. So this is cool. Right, next up, I wish I had included a code call, because all I've changed is that make bar chart call. I've changed it to make map. And so this is similar to that first table I showed, except I'm not breaking it out by education level, I'm breaking it out by state. So here's daily person trips by state. Again, this is an SVG web element, I just screen grabbed it from there. And we want to map stuff. Like the journalist guy said, we don't get a lot of excuses to sometimes make visualizations. It comes up maybe once a year on a report or some task here or there. So this was an excuse, and it's useful. We like to do it. It helps us tell stories. So we wanted to support maps. So we kind of baked in all of those geography, spatial, object things, wrapped it all up for us. So it created a composite projection. So you've got Hawaii and Alaska there, because this is a national survey. And one thing, we went a step farther and we're like, well, we've wrapped this up so much. Like, let's allow the make map function to accept a second table. And let's allow the user to now sort of, not only at the national level am I seeing daily person trips by state, but I can hover over the state and specify with one of those other tables I've provided, in this case, trip activity. So this is a fun one to play around with. I'm looking forward to using it more. And so I wanted to bring in the documentation again, because we just looked at some code examples, and I'm talking about using R and open source tools or whatever. But if you go to the GitHub page, we try and present it in a really accessible way. And like once you're in R Studio or R and you type in any of those calls in black right there, you can land at the documentation page. And if you have questions, it's sort of the reference. It's all built in there, and it's sort of yeah. So I just wanted to show this. Closing thoughts. The reason I have proof of concept here is because we would run into challenges a lot, and there were questions about was it technically possible, and I think we've had a fun time banging our heads and figuring out that yeah, we can do this. It required us to do a lot of it by ourselves, though, but we're going to contribute it back to the user community, find more excuses to use it internally, and eventually, soon here when the 2016 data comes out, we're going to want to publish this officially, so in one fewer line you can sort of access this install package, summarized in HTS. Here, the only reason it's 2 calls is because it's supporting sort of downloading the most current version, the most latest developed version. So you can go to that GitHub page, run those 2 lines in our studio, and start to play with some of those examples you saw. You can check out a demo on there for other examples. We'll continue to, provide that stuff within the package and online and elsewhere to encourage people to try. Right. Shout outs, Westat, HWA, Bridge, that Summary Travel Trends report. I mean, BTS has some good documentation. Shout out to them. Ours open source community has a really, it's good. And the NACS Summarizer team is